A Separate Piece by John Knowles. Our identity is impacted by the decisions we make in response to events and people that challenge where we stand the strongest during our years of adolescence. In this world, we are often dissatisfied with who we are in both our personality and appearance, putting our desires into wanting to become like those we most admire or hate. This is jealousy. Jealousy can cause us to question our own values, talent, and worth. We can begin to approach people or events as challengers to our security, or our motives and actions can become blinded by a wall of emotion, causing us to destroy even what we hold most dear. For Jean, the main character of A Separate Piece by John Knowles, this statement is very real. It begins with a feeling of discontent and resentment, aroused by the desire to possess the qualities and popularity of Finney. Finney could get away with anything: missing dinner or skipping classes to play with friends, wearing a pink, finely woven broadcloth shirt, and wearing the Devon school tie as a belt. Finney was charismatic and seemed to have had a pull on teachers and students alike. In Jean's eyes, Finney was number one. Somewhere along the line, Jean's envy became jealousy and anger toward Finney of the qualities and popularity that he possessed. Thoughts racing of how Jean could gain the upper hand and become better than Finney took him over. Devious plans of action began to take form in the mind of Jean. Jean's strongest motive was to be better than Finney, and the only thing Jean was better than Finney was studies. But Finney was always dragging Jean away to participate in the super secret summer session society club late at night, causing Jean to miss classes. The gears in Jean's mind began to spin, and Jean suspected that Finney was pulling Jean away from his studies purposefully, so that Jean would continue to be less important in every way than Finney. But when Jean snapped at him for interrupting his studies, Finney apologized and backed off. This disappointed Jean because he thought Finney had finally seen him as equal, but Finney never cared about that. And to Jean, if he wasn't equal to Finney, he was nothing. Since Jean could not measure up to Finney, while the two were going to jump out of a tree together in a moment of emotional jealousy, Jean decided to jounce the limb, causing Finney to fall to the ground and to break Finney's leg. Jean's only thought at the time was on how to make Finney feel and be as inadequate as he was. This decision, made out of jealousy to fight against someone who challenged where he stood, would impact the identity of Jean and Finney. Finney couldn't play sports or participate in the war. Finney denies the idea that Jean purposefully may have broke his leg. Jean did it, and he feels guilty. Jean determines that Finney can live life through him. Jean gets sucked into the idea that the war is not real by Finney and is talked into training for the Olympics. Brinker tells Jean to stop pitying Finney so that he could move on, but Jean opposes the idea. If he did that, he would lose the identity he gained and possibly his best friend. The equality he strived for would vanish. Brinker knew the truth had to be revealed and called a meeting in the middle of the night to investigate Finney's incident. Things heated up, and they were close to finding out Jean was the culprit, but Finney did not want to hear it. He ran out, and in the rush, he broke his leg a second time and was taken to the infirmary. Jean snuck over to see Finney that same night, but was rejected and damned. Jean ran to his room in self-pity. The next day, he was told to bring Finney's stuff over to him, and his best friend questioned him.
Why did you come to visit me last night?
Because I felt that I belonged here.
I wish there wasn't a war.
What made you say that?
I don't know if I can take this with a war on.
If you can take...
What good are you in a war with a busted leg?
When Finney broke his leg, he denied anything had changed, and Jean encouraged that by letting him live his life through him. But when Jean came to his side, Finney opened up about why he had denied the war as reality. It's then that Jean says that he is sorry, and that when he pushed him, it was stupid act of jealousy, ignorant and blind, and that he doesn't hate Finney. Reassured that his best friend doesn't hate who he has become, he forgives him and is able to move on and accept his new identity. But then Finney dies. But Gene doesn't cry. Gene's attachment died with Finney, and although he's not happy about his death, the separation was needed in order for Gene to develop his own identity and not encounter life as Finney. But as himself, he looked back on that situation and how he handled it in hopes he wouldn't make the same mistake in the future. It hadn't been jealousy of Finney and faced the consequences of his decisions, he wouldn't be who he is today. Jealousy affected Gene's thoughts, decisions, and time, which strongly shaped his identity. Gene became engrossed in Finney's life, ignoring his own positive traits. Gene had a razor-like focus on all that Finney was and all that he was not. When Finney dies, Gene realized that jealousy was harmful and carries many negative consequences. Gene recognized the error of his thoughts and actions. It is at this time that he decides he will no longer give in to the emotion of jealousy, to approach life in a more mature manner, accept himself for who he is, accepting his faults and appreciating his talents. Jealousy is a plague to humankind, eating away at the soul and life of the person obsessed in the emotion, and for the many of those who surround such a person. In our hunger to be like someone else, we lose our thoughts, become driven by emotion, and can make some of the most unintelligent and negatively impacting decisions of our lives. In closing, we can take the story of Finney and Gene, the path they traveled and the impact that jealousy had upon them and those around them, deciding that we will do all that we can to think and act as the Gene we see at the end of this story. We can learn from the poor decisions and the negative thoughts of Gene, determining that we will do all that we can to accept who we are, appreciate the traits and the talents that we possess while honoring the traits and the talents of others.